Hello, and thanks for rejoining me for the continuation of the video that I started on the Challenger explosion from 1986 and my analysis of the event before it happened using astrology and tarot. And so I'm going to try to clarify some things. I'm going to try to recount my thought process at the time. Unfortunately, I didn't have things like YouTube and the internet and whatnot. And so, of course, I had to calculate the chart by hand, as I've said before. And so, which takes a long time. I actually did multiple charts, but I just showed you one that I did. The only difference in the one that I showed yesterday and the one that I actually drew is I would have done equal houses because it was just easier. Just an easier process just to do equal houses rather than the way the houses are divided up on the chart that I showed previously. And so, another comment that, I get from people is, well, what happened, it must have been God's will, and, you're trying to play God and things like that. And I'm doing no such thing. And if you believe that it's God's will that people die needlessly, that's up to you. That's on you. It was 7 deaths that were completely unnecessary, didn't have to happen. But like I said, at the time, I was a young girl and nobody would listen to me anyway. And I'm sure that other astrologers and psychics spoke up at the time and they got ignored as well. But, it's one of those things where some of us just have a certain kind of conscience and we feel like, we at least have to try, to get a message out. Even if it's based on something that people don't believe in that much, like astrology and tarot. And they're like, oh, well, I believe in science. Well, look where science got everybody in that situation. Didn't get them very far. Got some of them killed, So, yeah, I'm still going to defend my astrology and tarot. And I'm still going to, if I can try to, give somebody information that might help them avoid a bad situation or a needless suffering, death, whatever. I don't see anything wrong with that. Like I said, some of you do, and that's fine. I get it. But I'm just going to continue on doing what I do. So I was talking about how I changed the house system this time. And please excuse the phone. It's going to move around a little bit because I think I've mentioned to y'all before, I'm a truck driver. And my husband and I are team drivers, and he's driving right now. And I'm in the back doing astrology videos. So anyway, so this chart I ran under the equal house system, which is what I did initially when I was a teen because, like I said, equal house is just, it's easier, and for me it makes more sense, especially in this case. Now, in the other chart, the houses were not equal, and I think the 8th house ended about here, which put Neptune in the 9th house instead of the 8th house. But when we do equal house, everything, in my opinion, makes more sense because Neptune, okay, it's in the 8th house under the equal house system, and Neptune rules things like maritime industries, the Navy, the ocean, all of that kind of stuff. Also secrecy, deception, and when you get to researching this explosion, you'll find out that there was a lot of secrecy and deception that was going on, and there were whistleblowers, and then there were people trying to keep things hush-hush and whatnot. So anyway, that kind of represents that, and so that makes that make a little more sense, if that makes any more sense. So, okay. Now, then we have in the 9th house, the 9th house starts in Capricorn under the equal house system here, instead of starting in Sagittarius, I think, like it did under the other chart system that I used initially. But this is the chart system I used as a teen because, like I said, equal house is easier. Now, what I look at is I see, okay, these planets are in the top of the chart, okay? So you have, this is the hemisphere. And this is actually the northern hemisphere. I know that's kind of weird. It's reverse, okay? And this is the southern hemisphere. And so at the top of the chart in Capricorn, you have Mercury and the Sun and Venus. So there's a stellium there in Capricorn. And Mercury being in the top of the chart is kind of a cause for alarm because Mercury deals with things like temperature and things like air conditioning and whatnot. And one of the main problems with this flight was it was too cold to launch. Parts of the spacecraft had, I think, ice crystals or freezing or something going on, and it was determined that that was the main cause of the explosion. And so so I always look at the top of the chart to see what's going on there. And the first thing, like I said, when I was going through this was I saw Mercury at the top of the chart. And let's see, there was something else that kind of alarmed me. Okay. Oh, I wanted to address something. I said that I was using horary astrology as a teen. Like I said, I'm going to use that term very loosely because a lot of horary astrologers would not consider my methods to be horary astrology. For instance, some of them say if you have a descendant, or actually the ascendant, which is over here, starting in the earlier degrees, like 3 degrees or something like that, or maybe even earlier, that the chart is unreadable. And I contend that all charts are readable. I don't care what they say. To me, this chart was very readable. Okay, but under some horary astrology rules, this chart might not be readable. Okay, so we have again Pluto and Mars in the 7th house, and I kind of discussed that. And the natural underlying 7th house is Libra. Okay, and but the 7th house transit, as it was transiting during that time, landed in Scorpio. I don't know if I explained that earlier or not, but and to review, Scorpio represents death and destruction and whatnot. There's not a lot of good meanings for Scorpio. And let's see, there was something else I saw over here. Okay. I think I mentioned the lunar node over here being in Taurus at 5 degrees. I'm not sure if the ephemeris that I was using at that time showed lunar nodes, so I wanted to point that out, that this might have been something that I saw later on in my study. I'm not terribly sure if I saw the lunar node as a teen. Okay, and now something that did change when I went to equal house, or when I was originally in equal houses, but it has changed from that video to this one. The 4th house started in Cancer in the other house system, in the video that I showed before. But in this one, the 4th house starts in Leo. Leo deals with things like authorities, royalty, wealth, things like that, and popularity, and so on. Another thing that I saw was I saw this is what's known as a yod, okay, and it looks like it has about a 60-degree base here. Sorry. Looks like it has about a 60-degree base right here. Okay, and the yod is between Mars and the Sun and the Moon. Now, so the yod points to the Moon. Now, the yod is also called the finger of God, and it points to pertinent issues and problems. And the yod is in Gemini. Gemini rules things like Mercury, which also deals with temperature, okay, which I mentioned temperature earlier. And let's see here, where is Mercury? Okay, Mercury is at 12 degrees. So, okay, this is, I'm trying to figure out 23 degrees. So I'm trying to figure out, let's see, the moon is at 24. Okay, so the yod connects to the sun, connects the sun to the moon, and connects the moon to Mars. Okay, so like I said, Mars deals with violence, firearms, you know, I guess you could say fire in general, okay, and the military, of course. And then you have the sun, which also deals with authorities, the sign of Leo. And then you have, of course, like I said, the moon down here in Gemini. And I think this points to a problem with temperature. Because like I said, Gemini is mercurial. And Mercury falls under Gemini's rulership. Okay? So we can see temperature is a huge problem. And let's see here, the 12th house. In this case, I can't remember where the 12th house started in the other chart, but under the equal house system, when I was initially studying this, I saw the 12th house starting in Aries. And because it started in Aries, Aries again rules things like the military, firearms, etc. Pisces is the underlying 12th house, okay? And Aries, like I said, also deals with the military, and it's in the 12th house of sorrows, troubles, and secrets. So it's basically the same as the other chart. There's just a few minor differences between the chart that I showed in the previous video and the type of chart that I actually used as a teenager, which is the equal house chart. And so I hope that clears up some of the things that I mentioned before. And again, this chart is not the actual launch date. This is just the first chart I ran when I first heard about the project. And now I'm going to go on to the chart of the actual date.